Thanks for joining us today. We will be talking with Kara and Lauren because today is the debut of their new podcast. Lauren is the senior tech editor at The Verge, and Kara, as I'm sure everyone knows, is the co-editor, the executive editor of Recode.
Yes, she's the executive editor of Recode, and she's also the host of the Recode podcast. She's a busy lady. She's got a lot going on. That's why she's a little late right now, but she's signing in right now. She got hung up on two-factor auth. Everybody should use two-factor auth, except for when you need to sign into something on a deadline. So yeah, how does this all work?
Cool. So basically, we're just going to have a chat and a discussion. I'm going to ask a few questions about how this podcast got started and what sort of the impetus for it was. And then once we get rolling, we can just take questions from the live chat itself, from people who are asking questions live.
Okay, that sounds great. I think Kara's trying to log in right now. Hold on.
Okay.
She's moving away from me.
Can you see me? No. Can you see me?
I can't see you. Can you guys see Kara? I see an open seat.
It says lock C call in.
By the way, this is what happens when you get a bunch of tech reporters together in a room and they try to figure out a really simple chat application. It's like trying to ask people to work a conference call. Yeah. There she is. Do you need us in the same place so you can Periscope us?
Oh, look, a lot of hearts for me.
Okay, I'm going to move so that our social, our podcast producer, social media, everything, Eric Johnson is going to Periscope this too.
We're repeating each other. Periscope on mine?
Yeah.
Taking my
we're
phone?
back, Kara.
Okay, good. Whatever. What do you want us to do? All right, they can handle it. Okay. All right, here we go. Okay, are we waiting for questions or what?
Yeah, let's get started. So, Kara, you're the co-host of Recode Decode, which is for me one of my favorite tech podcasts, and I think basically it should be a go-to for anyone who likes to listen to podcasts in the tech world. And Lauren, I know you're a frequent guest on Recode Decode, and you're also on the Vergecast pretty frequently as well, right?
Yeah, so I'm technically part of The Verge. I used to be a part of Recode, but then after Recode was acquired by Vox Media, Kara traded me over like a baseball player and got rid of me. No, I'm just kidding. I love Recode very much. And so I am writing for The Verge, but I'm also still very involved with Recode Radio. Kara has asked me to be a part of it, and I'm really excited because we just launched a new podcast. So Kara is the host of Recode Decode, which has been tremendously successful. And now we're doing To Embarrass Cast together.
Yes. Really a comedy act disguised as a gadget show, where I always prevail because I'm smarter and prettier. That's the prettier part. So.
She's definitely prettier.
Anyway, so we think it's great. It was part of Recode Decode, but it was at the end, and people are really come for the interviews and stuff, and it was so good. We wanted people to really get a sense of how smart Lauren is and how much you can approach gadgets in a very different way than a geek boy, man fest essentially.
Yeah, I mean Kara's podcast, and by the way, Peter Kafka has also branched off and done his own podcast. You can go down the list of guests in iTunes and see that there's some really amazing high caliber guests there. They've spoken with everyone from Mark Andreessen to Lena Dunham as part of the podcast. But a lot of that, they tackle business issues, they tackle topics such as diversity, and we thought that there was room to do something that was really focused on the product in a fun and interesting way.
And bring in guests. This week we had Casey Newton. Next week we have Steve Sinofsky, former guy who was in charge of Windows. So we're going to bring in interesting geek guests. We weren't going to let them geek up too much because it's really, the whole point is to make things comprehensible to people, although not dumbing it down. But we're not going to go like crazy on ridiculous features like, oh my God, it has... whatever.
Peach is going to change the world.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. So
yeah, you guys talked about Peach on today's episode.
Oh, I see that you guys are experiencing a lot of echo. Actually, I'm seeing that maybe it's because we're in the same room, we're sitting next to each other. Is that causing a problem?
I shall leave.
Okay, sorry, we might have to quit the or at least follow Kara with the Periscope. She's more interesting than I am.
No, I'm not. I'm being stalked.
All right, let us know if that gets better after Kara leaves this room.
This is, by the way, this is the Recode offices. If you want to.
They're pretty fancy. This is one market.
So yeah, how can I do this? So that's a lovely ceiling.
Yeah, we're all
so this
is an earthquake. Okay.
So this is. Let me show you the studio. I'll get there. So we do broadcasts from NBC here. Laura and I will have a new talk show coming up in the. No, we don't. We have a new series, Cagney and Lacey. It's going to be great. So here's the studio. It has a very beautiful view. And TV, because it's such a deep medium, it's all about the view. You can see the set. Wait, where's the CNBC logo? Oh, it's not on. Anyway, this is the set on CNBC, and then those are the screens that I got to look at behind me and the cameras.
Yeah, I can't see anything because your internet is so poor.
Oh well, too bad. All right, so then I'm going over here. Okay. Anyway, it's where we are here in the NBC offices.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to my desk now and sitting in my red chair. Okay.
Cool. So, so what's the format of the new podcast? For those who may not know.
We're still, right now, we're sticking with the Q&A format that we originally started the Too Embarrassed to Ask segment as part of the original radio show. So every week we're basically posing questions on social or saying, hey, we're going to be talking about this particular topic. Do you guys have any questions? And fielding a lot of questions from our readers and our listeners through Twitter, Facebook, and any other, means in which people pass along their questions. So we're still spending about half of Too Embarrassed to Ask on those listener questions and really trying to drill down and answer questions. And then, as Kara mentioned earlier, we are planning on bringing more and more high-profile guests into the show to have, interesting discussions about tech and products and that sort of thing. We have a couple other ideas up our sleeve that we want to eventually try out. I mean, I think that's the really fun thing about the podcast format is that there's a lot of leeway to try different things. And you can certainly have a more casual or intimate conversation in a podcast than maybe you can in other formats. It's funny, we've talked about bringing video into the radio studio while we're doing the podcasts, especially for certain products and certain guests that just might be more visually interesting. But with some people, you bring a video camera into the room and they immediately clam up. Whereas when they're sitting in front of a microphone, you can have a much more intimate conversation.
Yeah, not us, because we're egomaniacs.
Yeah, we just talk all day long.
We like a camera. Look at me. We're sort of look at me people. But I think conceptually, one of the reasons I am there too is because I'm not a normal person, like the normals, I like to call them, but I'm not a geek either. And so I think if it bores the crap out of me, we stop talking. You know what I mean? Like, I think the test is that it's something that's comprehensible. Explain, like Lauren and I had an ongoing discussion. What was the word I hated, Lauren, that you kept repeating endlessly?
It was OTT. You didn't like the
OTT.
referring to
OTT. Fuck, who the hell? Who understands that in any way? Who's a normal person who has dated on occasion? So I mean, I think what's really important is we try to make things understandable. So if they're bringing us words like OTT, it means something. It means watching Netflix. It means watching House of Cards, like making it easy for people. And if they have, no question is too dumb, and that's, well, there are dumb questions. That's not true, but there's things that people who are very smart people don't understand or just need easy explanations. And like Walt Mossberg, when he started his first column, I think the first line, which I think is the best line ever written in tech, was technology is too hard to use and it's not your fault. And so that's where we're coming from. The idea that there's certain topics like, what is this peach I've been hearing about with the kids, or what is, what happened did anything happen at CES, or did, I can't put my wireless network next, like something like that. Even it's hard for us. We're going to try to make it easy.
What are your thoughts on Peach? I know our Neve on our team, he does social for our team. He loves it. I'm curious. I know you guys talked about it on the episode today, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Peach? I think it's silly, but whatever. If I want to send gifts to people I don't like that much, it's great.
What about you, Lauren?
I tend to agree. I haven't found it sticky enough yet. I've used it a few times, and I posted a photo of Casey Newton and drew something, and as we pointed out in the podcast, there are some social networks or some apps that seemingly start out as something mundane or silly and then end up sort of ballooning into something more meaningful. Right now, I'm not especially optimistic that will happen with Peach.
Yeah, someone just said, and you can put a ring on it and boop. I mean, I know exactly.
You can
That's
cake
pretty much
people. I have no idea what that means, but you can cake them.
I know,
It sounds like a
cake
euphemism for something. I don't know.
You want to put a ring on it? Listen to the Beyonce video. It's fine. Like, I think one of the things Casey was talking about, I think he's right, is it's the most popular social network on Friday. Like, that's the thing. These things come out, and the only thing that happens is everyone goes back to Facebook, trudges back to like North Korea, I guess. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
we'll use Facebook. Facebook works. So I think, what did he call it? The utility? He had a funny.
I don't know. It's kind of like that segment on Bill Hader on SNL where he was like, Manhattan's the hottest nightclub is whatever it is that weekend. It's sort of like that's Peach.
Yeah, but so far, we'll see. We don't get Snapchat as easily as other people do. So, I mean, and that's a good thing. We did one, I think, a while ago about it on Snapchat. Like, let's explain it to you, old people, essentially. That was essentially the premise. But let's explain it. It is a difficult to use interface if you're not naturally part of it. My 13-year-old uses it he's so fast on it. I find Snapchat a little harder to use. I don't think it's because I'm old. I just think it's a different interface. Obviously, it's been super successful. But we talk about that, like, here's what it's doing. And Casey, again, was talking about that, that there's things that you can do on Snapchat that he doesn't understand, he forgets. And so we try to give people that we don't assume they're stupid, essentially.
Also, I mean, one thing we talked about a little bit on the podcast is that with something like a social network, even things that start out seemingly silly eventually become a real destination for people to consume more meaningful content. So Snapchat Discover is one example of that. And obviously people are sharing lots of news and have been experimenting with news for years on Facebook and Twitter. And right now, I don't think you could even share links on something like Peach. So we're obviously talking about this thing that's been around for 2 weeks. So it's really, really early to even say, but I think anything that it's going to evolve in that way has to be something that eventually supports more meaningful content.
Yeah, I think those are great insights. I totally agree. Maybe we can jump into some questions now from the live chat, and this is sort of relevant. So Zach Zach asks, how do you guys consume news primarily? Twitter, Recode?
Well, Recode, obviously, clearly. We're on it 24/7. No,
The Verge.
of course not. We're sick of Recode by the time we write it. We don't want to read it again. No, we do. I think I use Twitter a lot. I find it a really great news discovery vehicle. I have been using Facebook more, but it tends to be a lot more pictures of vacations and cat videos than I'm thrilled with. So,
That's the woman.
I click on it. I know. Don't even talk. Don't. That's not me. It's the one I'm dating. So, and I get drawn into the cat thing. But I just think Facebook is different. It's not as much a news, it's sort of fun videos and thing. And the latest, craziest Trump thing. Like those kids that were.
Oh, it's so weird.
Yeah. And you know what? The thing is, half of America thinks it's delightful. So half America loves chimichangas. So I don't know what to say. So so I think that's I use Twitter, I think, pretty much, and then sometimes Facebook, and I read the New York Times app. Actually, I think the New York Times is the greatest newspaper, one of the greatest newspapers, and every day they have something delightful. And I think I like their app. How do you read, Lauren?
I'm not just saying this because Kara gave me my own show, but I actually am aligned with all of that. I think I look at Twitter. Twitter is my day-to-day. Twitter to me is like the work week, and Facebook is the things that your friends are talking about Saturday night at a party. Like, Twitter to me is I have it sort of tailored, so it's a really intelligent, sometimes a little overwhelming, but a really intelligent stream of news that I genuinely feel I need to do my job and to get through the week. And then Facebook is like, oh my God, did you hear about that bear that mauled this woman in a Safeway parking lot, and then also tweeted afterwards and took a selfie? Like, it's a really interesting difference. And I think that Facebook is trying to figure out ways to curate and personalize people's newsfeed so that it gets smarter. But I don't know if it's because of the social algorithms. I don't know if it's because our social networks are so huge, but a lot of times I find it's a little bit more junk that ends up in my Facebook feed. Facebook, by the way, is incredibly important to publishers, and it's becoming increasingly so, especially when you look at something like video. So it's not to poo-poo Facebook entirely. It's just, this is my own personal reading experience.
A lot of our stuff has worked well there, but it is more babies on beaches. It seems like, well, my friends have a lot of babies up, they put them on beaches. Someone asked if I bought a pie.
And
What?
I also
The Times?
use
Go ahead.
I use the Times regularly. I read the Times regularly, and I still subscribe to the Journal Weekend. I used to work at the Journal, and I still I like their weekend paper a lot. And I use Instapaper a lot for stuff that I just know I'm not going to have time to read, but I want to read, before I fall asleep at night or something. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
It's just
so someone just asked if I bought a Powerball ticket. I bought $100 worth of Powerball tickets. Yes, I did. Of course I did. And had I won, I would not be here, obviously.
She didn't give any to her employees, I can tell you that.
What the hell is that? No way. I mean, I'd buy you a nice present, Lauren, but I'll buy you a hoverboard. How about that?
She's going to get me an exploding hoverboard.
Yeah.
She's going to be like, the battery density on this one's a little.
I like hoverboard.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I just think my kid has a hoverboard. So.
As a quick follow-up to that, do you guys just use the regular Twitter app, or do you use third-party Twitter apps? Or when you're using Twitter for news, do you create certain lists, or are there any sort of
Whatever happened to lists? What lists is like? I don't know.
Sometimes I use Nuzzle, but I don't tend to open it up. That's the thing. I think it's useful because it guides a lot of those things. I like Nuzzle, for example, but I don't find I use them as much, and I should, because they're very good guides of what your friends like, and it makes sense. It makes sense. It just I don't know why I just don't. I go to like 4 apps probably. Like a lot, like most people.
Yeah, I use Nuzzle the same way, just for the notifications for when things are tipping. We have another question here from Anna. She says, "Hi, Karen and Lauren. Thank you for joining the live chat. I see that a lot of reporters are becoming investors, product managers, or founders. Have you thought much about that? At which points in your career? What helps you to stay in the profession during the crisis? And how, in your opinion, will the media world change in the future?"
Which crisis? I'm sorry. I don't know which crisis she's speaking. There's so many.
I'm not sure either. It just says during the crisis.
Okay. All right. I mean, the last .com boom. I have never wanted to be an investor. I have never done that. We have very strict ethical rules at Recode. I have never wanted to work for a company. I've been offered jobs at every single internet company since the dawn of time. Ted Leonsis, who happens to own a sports team now, always sends me a note of how much I would be worth now had I taken the job at AOL back in the day. It was like early, like 10 people. Same thing, Yahoo, I was offered a job. I was offered a job at Google, Facebook. And I kept saying, no, I'm a reporter. Why would I want to do that? So I didn't take any. So obviously I'm an idiot. And then as to founder, yes, we founded All Things D. Even though it was within the Wall Street Journal, it created a new product and created an incredibly successful conference franchise from zero. With very little. It was an entrepreneurial effort, and then we did Recode and sold it just recently. So yes, I am a founder, and I'm done founding. I think I'm done founding.
Yeah, I think Kara brings up a good point. There's so much room for entrepreneurship within journalism itself. I think that if you are a journalist at heart, you are dedicated in a lot of ways to serving up stories in a way that it's accessible to people. You're interested in telling the stories that other people aren't telling. Once you become a part of a company, you're telling the story that company wants you to tell. And once you become an investor, you're paying attention to a lot of other companies that really aren't very underserved. And when you're doing good journalism and you're telling the right kind of stories, and by the way, doing good journalism doesn't mean you have to do like shoe leather reporting and like dumpster diving for documents and actually doing the writing. There are so many ways to do good journalism now, and so many ways to kind of stretch your legs in this business.
Yeah.
I just think that there's so many things you can do aside from going to work for a VC firm for a year.
Yeah, we've done, I was just talking to someone from Vox because we're taking a lot of our code conference stuff and putting them in podcasts and we have tons of fantastic video. And we have even more during the 10 years or 11 years of All Things D. We have a history of the internet, and like the Steve Jobs, Bill Gates interview, the Mark Zuckerberg sweating video. We've got every major figure since the internet started, where we have 8 Steve Jobs interviews. Like, he never went on stage. These are real, they're products, even though I don't like to use the term product. But we've created beautiful journalistic products that we're going to live on for century, when people go back. And so I think one of the things that's important is journalists really, I don't think you can be a journalist today unless you're entrepreneurial or unless you don't understand the business. I think a lot of people at All Things D and Recode do understand the conference business, they understand the events business, they understand the podcast business.
The advertising
it's really
business.
important. Yeah, it's really important. I was just talking to someone who's thinking of starting a podcast, a journalist. They think it's just like plug and play and stuff like that. And I asked them, they did a deal with one of those podcast companies. There's a million podcast companies you can align with. And I said, well, what's your revenue split? Didn't know. And I was like, well, did you read the contract? No, I didn't. And I was like, you're a fucking idiot. I'm going to leave lunch now. You know what I mean? It was like, you need to understand business and understand what you're doing in order to do well at it. And it's not a crossing the line thing. It's you're creating something that people want, and you have to be understanding what you're creating is worth buying or worth advertising or something.
Absolutely. I think another good example of that is Jessica Lesson over at The Information. I mean, Jessica was a Wall Street Journal reporter, and then she started her own thing. I think she's used some term like reportrepreneur or something like that. I don't know if that's really stuck, but you know,
I've taken offense to that term, but I've laughed with her about that term. But she's right. She's great. She's amazing.
Yes. And they're doing really good journalism over there, and they are charging a premium for it. And you know, I don't know what the future is in terms of charging a premium, that kind of fee for journalism or subscription journalism in general. But I really commend her for what she's doing, and that's a great example of entrepreneurship in journalism.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any podcasts that you guys follow, tech or otherwise?
Oh, I like all the Gimlet stuff. I think they do a nice job. I listen to the whole first season of Obviously, we listen to Serial. I haven't listened to this season. I'm not sure why. I guess time would be it. I listened to the Gimlet Startup. Was great. I pick different things that I like over time. I really like, here's a history one, what you don't know much about history. I listened to the TED one. It's really well done. I'm trying to think if there's any weird. Mark Maron, obviously, is a great interviewer. Alec Baldwin is a great interviewer.
Yes.
So.
This is going to sound like a shameless plug, but I swear I actually really enjoy this podcast. The Verge also has a podcast called What's Tech that's hosted by Chris Plant. And he does a really good job of boiling down, consumer technology, all types of technology in a really interesting way. So I like that podcast a lot.
And of course, Control Walt Delete with Nilay.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Walt is having a lot of fun with that. If you guys haven't, well, Nilay too, they're having a blast with that podcast. And if you guys have not taken a listen to that yet, I highly recommend it.
I love the name of it.
Yeah, it's kind of a gimme, right? You have to call it that.
Someone said All Things C was amazing. Thank you very much. We loved All Things C.
It was great. Yeah, we had a great time.
Andrew from Product Hunt has a question. He says,
of the people Provincetown? Did you say Provincetown?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, Product Hunt. He's on our team.
I love Provincetown. I wish I was there.
Oh. He says, of the people you've interviewed, who totally caught you off guard and said something different than you expected or appeared differently on social media?
I think I liked my interview with President Barack Obama. I thought it was interesting. He was much more serious than I thought, and he was pugnacious in a way. Was surprising. I really did enjoy my interview with Hillary Clinton. I thought she's funny and interesting, and she sort of came to play. So that was kind of a fun interview. People give me a hard time, but I enjoyed my interview with Kim Kardashian. People underestimate her and dismiss her easily, but she's created a lot of really interesting businesses. Whether you like them or not is different. But I thought it was fun to do. And actually, I have to tell you, everyone noticed. I mean, someone the other day was like, oh, I saw your big interview. And I was like, oh, with the president? And they're like, no. And I go, Hillary Clinton? They're like, no. And they go, Kim Kardashian, of course, which was kind of fascinating. I think I just did an interview of all things with Sean Hayes, who was on Will and Grace, but now he's a producer in Hollywood. And he turned out to be really interesting. I was surprised how, much he understood the digital sector. I'm trying to think who else. Who else was good, Lauren? What do you like? I'm trying to think. Jobs, obviously. Jobs. Well, Jobs, 100%. He was the best. He was the most fun to interview because he really gave it back to you. And that's, smart people like smart questions. So he never ran away from tough questions, even though he didn't answer them all truthfully all the time. But he was good. He was really clever. He's a clever man. So.
Yeah, I think in general, every time you, at least for us, I mean, we interview so many people in the technology industry, and you sort of know what you're getting a lot of times. I would say that the disparity between people in tech, their social media presences or things that you've read about them online, and then when you meet in person, usually aren't entirely different. But with celebrity, And we don't get starstruck. I mean, Kara doesn't get starstruck. I've interviewed celebrities, but we've started to include more and more celebrity type figures into our conferences and into our podcasts. And anybody who, celebrities are always playing this persona in their work. And when you get them into an interview setting, you realize that if they truly are successful, they're either incredibly smart or they're surrounding themselves with very smart people. And so they go way beyond whatever their persona is or whatever their shtick is. Like Chelsea Handler, we had her on stage last year at Goode, and she's incredibly smart. And like we had BJ Novak into the podcast recently, and like he's very different from the character you might think of on The Office. And like, so that's always, I think, a pleasant surprise to me.
Yeah, and I think one of the people I really enjoy talking to is Mark Andreessen. We've known each other. I think I've known him since he was 19 or 20, and I was younger, not quite that young, but pretty young. And so we've had a long relationship, ups and downs, a lot of fighting, and so we know each other very well. And so he knows all my tricks. I know all his tricks, and which are myriad. And so we had a great conversation. I liked that interview. I think people liked it a lot. It was a great interview. He really did. What I prefer when I talk to people is they answer the fucking question. And so that's, sorry, I'm cursing so much, but no, I'm not. It's just, they have to answer the question. And again, smart people love smart questions and they don't avoid questions. Worst interview, Carly Fiorina. Never would answer the question you asked. Answer or whatever I don't know what she was talking about, but she was a terrible interview. Terrible.
Sort of to piggyback on that, is there anyone that you haven't interviewed but would like to? Maybe is like on your bucket list or something along those lines?
I think for years, I'm trying to think. Lauren, can you think of something really quick of someone? Let me think about that for a minute.
Yeah,
well, I'd like to go back in history. I'd like to Jesus would be number one. I would like to chat with him a little bit. I'd love to talk to Cleopatra. I think about like people that aren't living anymore too. Thomas Jefferson, obviously, Hamilton now after seeing that play. I think I probably right now have not gotten, who have I not got? We've gotten pretty much a lot of people. Maybe Bill Clinton, I think would be fun to talk to. I think, gosh, I can't think of anyone off the top because we've gotten to everybody. We've gotten to all the tech people, so it's not like, maybe Angela Merkel would be interesting.
Cool. I'm going to pull in another question here. How do you and Lauren go about deciding the topic to highlight on Too Embarrassed to Ask? Obviously, plenty of topics out in the world. There are plenty of topics to speak about. What types of stories stand out to both of you?
Lauren?
Yeah, do you want me to answer? Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's a topical thing. It's whatever is newsworthy that week, and it could range from Tesla superchargers to exploding hoverboards to Bitcoin. I mean, we're trying to branch out more just beyond like I should not use something geeky, consumer electronics and like devices to actual themes and bigger topics. And a lot of times it is dictated by the news, but we do tape the podcasts at least a few days in advance. So we have to be a little bit careful about what we choose because we want something evergreen. We don't want something to feel totally dated by the time that it's getting ready to air on Friday morning. So like, for example, the Detroit Auto Show happened this week and we had a lot of people from The Verge on the ground there. And there's always a lot of really cool news coming out of the Detroit Auto Show. And I would love to have that be a topic we would maybe tackle on next week's podcast. But by the time the podcast is going to publish on Friday, maybe we've already moved on from that. So we're trying to keep things a little bit topical. I guess that's the best way to answer it. I'm sorry if that seems like it's not a full answer.
Yeah, I mean, things that are fun for people. I think things that we'll have very broad topics and then very particular ones. Like Peach was the hot thing of the week. CES was obviously happened. Maybe World Mobile Congress. There's certain South by Southwest, right, Lauren, and stuff like that. We might talk about those places if we go. But I think probably, Lauren's going to be doing the picking here and the guest finding, and it's really Lauren's show. I'm just here as comic relief. But it's really, Lauren's developed this amazing knowledge base about gadgets and where things are going. She's written really strongly on Fitbit and Jawbone and all the wearable space. So she has a really deep knowledge. And so one of the things we're trying to do is translate that deep knowledge into topics. So.
Great. And sort of, I guess this is kind of related to what you were just saying, but is there like a space within technology that either one of you are most sort of interested in right now?
I didn't hear all of what you said.
What space are you interested in technology? Yes.
Right now?
Outer space. Lauren wants to go to Mars with Elon Musk.
I've already signed up. Yeah, I signed up for Richard Branson's thing. Bezos and I are talking.
So do not want to do that. Yeah, so nice.
So I mean, I think Kara mentioned it earlier. I'm interested in wearables right now, but I'm interested in wearables well beyond what you're seeing on, this is the new Under Armour band, what you're seeing on people's wrists right now. I just wrote a story today on theverge.com about the battery life constraints that wearable makers are suffering and how, battery life is really pretty crappy across a lot of these devices. But like I'm really interested in where wearables are going to go in terms of things that are being built directly into clothing. Will that ever take off? Things like virtual reality, which some people would classify as a wearable because it goes on your face, some people might not. And also what this means for health, for actual health, not just, I hit my 10,000 step goal today, but we had an Intel CEO at Code Conference, not this past year, but the year before, and they were showing off a prototype of a smart shirt. And speaking with executives at Intel, they're saying like, listen, this isn't just for performance athletics. This isn't just for, how many miles did I cycle today and what was my heart rate? But imagine someone who's kind of in a remote village somewhere and doesn't have easy access to medical care, but there are smart things, diagnostic tools, clothing, things that people can wear and send those biometrics to someone who can basically diagnose them from afar. I mean, I think there's a lot of potential for really cool stuff with wearables that we've just barely scratched the surface on right now.
Yeah, I like sensors. I'm really into sensors right now. The same. I mean, there's like that, but I'm thinking more like things embedded in streets and gives us all kinds of information about our atmosphere. Now, people could think that's sneaky and spying like cameras, but I'm thinking more that gives us all kinds of data about the place we live. I think we probably don't know enough about how people are moving around a city, or I find sensors interesting. I would really like to have a bionic arm. I would really like to have something embedded in my ear that talks to me and tells me things. But I'm strange like that. I mean, I think it would be really interesting to, I think all not healthcare, but like making healthcare better. I mean, really like, I'm fascinated. I don't know if I think they're freakish, but I'm fascinated with people who are doing, hacking the body kind of stuff. I think that'll be super cool someday.
Kara, I'm going to take you to a body modification specialist. We're going to get a chip implant.
What's that, like getting plastic surgery? I'll just do my eye. I need them.
They're people that don't have medical licenses but are putting chips in people. And I'm gonna,
really?
Yeah, there's a guy.
What? I don't want to be like a cat. Like, I don't want to be like a cat. I want to it has to do something for me.
It'll make a great podcast episode.
No, but it's like there's a parking space.
Kara, do it for the people.
No, I'm not going to do it. Not if it gives me something. It's like these watches. These watches. I have the Apple Watch. I've got the Fitbit. They just don't do enough for me. They need to instead of saying I did this many steps, it's got to say put down that donut right now and walk. Like it has to that donut made your blood sugar go this much. Get up. You know what I mean? I just want them to actually be. I call them actionable information to help me. Otherwise, they can get the hell out. That's my feeling.
That's great.
See, I'm every man. Lauren is the expert. I'm every man.
I'm not an expert, just a geek.
I sound like the guy from Simpsons, Homer Simpson.
Is there one piece of technology you find yourself explaining more than others? That's a really good question. I would actually say the technology that I feel myself having to explain right now is VR, because people who have not tried VR are just seeing the external, they're perceiving it, and obviously they're seeing the externals of it, and they're saying that looks really ridiculous, and this is I've seen the future, and it's people walking around with VR headsets. But until you've actually had a very good experience wearing a VR headset, you can't really understand it. You can say to someone who hasn't worn one before, it's this really immersive experience, and it's really cool. But until you've actually experienced it yourself, I find myself trying to explain the value of it to people.
I don't explain anything. I just ask questions. Probably though, how does my iPhone update itself? My mother's asking that all the time. My kid, I'm always updating someone's phone, stuff like that. The fact that we have to is a good question. Lauren, I'd like you to answer that. Why the hell do we have to update these things all the time?
Why do we have to update them? Because
why don't they just do it?
Software is eating the world. Why do we have to be
a participant? Why do we have to be a participant in the uploading?
There are auto uploads. You can
set not really. There's always some.
Upload. You can
that's not the case. Like it's always asking.
Upload. I mean upload. I keep saying upload. Update.
I guess, but it's just still not. It's the problem with technology is they still want us to participate in their stupid cycles the way they do. They want us to be part of their cycle. They're beta testing things, and we're the beta testers, and it's ridiculous. Like you wouldn't have like a refrigerator do that to you. They wouldn't look. We're going to come in and fix it some more. We're not. This food we just added this. I don't care what's in a piece of like. I think they think it's more. They try to like involve you too much in the background of their efforts. I think.
Yep. That's actually a great point. That's one thing that I've noticed, at least over the past couple of years especially, is that as product cycles become more compressed, that it used to be just software was something that could ship in beta and everyone sort of accepted it. Like Google Maps was in beta forever, right? And people are just like, oh yeah, agree, because I'm going to use Google Maps and it doesn't really matter. And there was this understanding that it was always sort of iterative. And now I'm seeing that more with hardware. Like I see more and more hardware shipping. Like we get laptop loaners in that like have dead pixels, or the keyboards or the trackpads aren't working, or we get wearables that aren't charging, and we like there are these things that are shipping now where it's just like the hardware feels like beta too, and I don't really think that's the way it should be. I think companies need to put a little bit more care into these things, especially as product cycles become more compressed.
I mean, I'm scared once they start to get into cars, they're going to start doing that behavior. Like, oh, oops. Like, I don't. It's a real mentality in the tech industry that they're doing you a favor of getting you these things rather than you're buying a product. That aren't you lucky to get this amazing photo app? And so I think their customer. I was interviewing the Lyft founder John Zimmer today for the podcast next week, and he was talking about customer service. It's the first time I've heard an internet person talking about customer service. And I think that's what they're trying to make their distinguishing trait, sort of up against the big bad Uber. We're nicer, I think, we try harder. They're like Avis, I guess. And so it's an interesting, you don't hear customer service discussions a lot from people in the Valley.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And yet it's what made Amazon so successful. So.
Yeah, okay. Someone just mentioned Slack. Slack is that guy, Stuart Butterfield. I have nothing but admiration for him. What he's doing around diversity, he's doing around customer service. Slack is a joy to use, and it's not hard to use. And and if you have a question, you can get it answered. It's one of those products it's not perfect by any stretch, but it's.
Oh no, it just goes to show if you had GIFs or GIFs, however you want to say it, to anything. Thumbs up.
Yep.
Yeah. That's all it takes, people.
Someone's saying Apple customer service.
Your products.
Apple customer service is good, except their software is just terrible. Some of them are just terrible. Their iTunes is so glitchy and a mess. But yes, you're right. Apple is quite good with their customer service. Largely.
There's another question here from, I hope I'm not mispronouncing this, Kiana. And she says, what problems are you most interested in solving or would you like to be solved? And I think I follow you on Twitter a lot, Kara, and I'm pretty sure this is something you sort of talk about a lot, if I'm not incorrect about.
Yes.
Some of the apps and startups seem to be focusing on maybe more trivial or flashy types of problems.
Yeah, I say that there's a lot of big minds chasing small ideas. I think that's what I say. It was from Pejman, an investor, the guy who started the rug store and then was investing in down in Palo Alto, he's a very successful investor now. And he's always been a successful investor. That's what he does full time now. So he said that to me, and I really struck a chord that there's so many major problems around the world, so many smart people here that they're wasting their time on a lot of trivial stuff. Although I like it. I like a photo app like anybody else. Or Peach is fine, but it's not, there's problems around poverty, around accessibility, around education, and not enough. I mean, it's moving that way. I mean, I do think, whatever you think about Uber and Lyft, and you think it's an elite use of taxis, essentially, the idea of changing transportation that is catching on now, and Lauren can talk about this at CES, is a big idea. That is going to change our societies drastically, to change how we are transported, how much gas we waste, how many people get killed, how we move around, how cities are built, how cities function. Like, what is the system of a city? They're built for cars. You know what I mean? Like, why aren't they built for people? And so those are the kind of things I think are, as we get to be a much bigger world than we should be, how do we manage food? How do we manage and things like that? The other thing is, one of the things I think drives me crazy, and I'm thinking of writing an essay about it, is Silicon Valley's, they sort of caught in a Peter Pan kind of situation all the time. And like, there's some very serious things going around, across our planet, not the least of which is this nasty, toxic presidential election so far, which has degenerated as if we're back in some era that I thought was gone, insulting all kinds of Mexicans, the disabled, Muslims and stuff like that.
Women.
Women, of course. Well, that's an ongoing situation. But it's just astonishing that Silicon Valley doesn't stand up more against. It's supposed to be about the future and progress and tolerance, and I think they don't. They certainly don't do it enough, for my taste. But I have high standards for that.
I think there are a lot of external problems that I wish Silicon Valley was maybe working on a little bit more, but it'd probably be unfair to point fingers without looking at our own industry too. So I'd say if I had to say what I wish companies were working on harder, more, better, however you want to describe it, would be solving food issues. So right now we have a lot of these on-demand services that are, aimed at working professionals who don't have time to make dinner or just want takeout, and they want it delivered at a certain time frame. They want certain types of food, right? And I wish in some way that would eventually be applied to bigger food problems, things like distribution to underserved areas, or how to eliminate waste and things like that. And I think it's a little bit of a data problem, and I think maybe eventually we'll get there, but that's one thing I'd like to see happen. And then in our own industry, I mean, one problem that I think that we need to figure out how to solve is how we continue to make good journalism that people want to read while the demands on our time are just ever increasing. I mean, on any given week now, we're, no joke, we're sourcing, we're reporting, we're tweeting, we're Facebooking, we're doing videos, we're doing GIFs, we're doing Facebook Live videos, we're Periscoping, we're Snapchatting, we're
Lauren, I'm gonna quit right now.
I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Goodbye. Bye, everybody.
So if anyone has a time management solution here, I'm all ears.
Oh, do either of you feel like you're obsessed with your phones, or that they're negatively affecting? I love my phone. It's the best relationship I've ever had.
Yeah, I'm a little obsessed with my phone. I remember it wasn't that long ago. I don't know if you guys remember this, but like, I remember reading the New York Post maybe 7 years ago, and it was like, one of the headlines was like, Madonna sleeps with her BlackBerry, so Guy Ritchie wanted to leave her, or something. Like, sleeping with your phone at that time was such an abhorrent thing. And now I'm like, who doesn't sleep with their phone? Like, I sleep with my phone. Do you sleep with your phone? Like, everyone I know before bed is like, I love you, honey. Yep. Like that. So like, I don't know, that just became the norm at some point.
Yeah. I there's a famous story about me. I had my BlackBerry with me when I had a baby, so I should just stop right now. I literally was in the operating room.
You really did.
For a cesarean, and I was texting with Walt. I mean, honestly, there's something wrong with me, totally. But we have that moment together, I guess. So yes, I think it's, people get, Arianna Huffington and we did a good interview with her where we talked about this on the podcast, which is, you should listen to it. So we get in an argument about it. She's like always talking about sleeping and getting off, unplugging. Meanwhile, she has 9 phones in her purse, FYI. Like, she's always hooked in. If you notice, there's never a moment Arianna Huffington's not hooked into some social network. But I think it's our operating procedure now to have these things. The question is, how can we put them in our lives in a way that are helpful and not intrusive and don't take over everything, so we end up like Wall-E, you know what I mean? Like, that's the question, is unplugging the right thing, or is it not in holding a phone right in front of you where you're staring? Is there some other way that we're going to use these devices helpfully? And I think that's a design issue. It's a social issue. And staring at your phone is going to seem ridiculous at some point. Like, it's just going to be in your ear or something. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not that smart to think about it.
Well, speaking of being in your ear, do you have any specific thoughts on where you think the future of podcasts are heading? Especially, I guess, since you run one of the best ones, in my opinion.
Thank you.
Lauren?
Where are they headed? Well, hopefully onto all of your phones, so you will listen to it. That's my silly answer. I don't know. I saw someone tweet something recently that I found pretty funny. You have to have a sense of humor about these things, which is, it's like the 90s all over again. Podcasts and newsletters are back. And I think this is shortly after the launch of Lena Dunham's newsletter, which I love, Lenny, and a lot of people are getting into podcasts now. And I think that these things are cyclical. So I think and it's partly enabled by the devices or the things that we listen to or we read these things on. So I would like to think that podcasts are just going up from here. But we may find after another period, some period of time that there's a better or different way to reach our audience that we should be devoting our time and resources to, and we'll adjust as needed. But I hope that podcasts are around to stay, and I hope especially ours is.
Well, I differ a little bit in that I think that creating great content, the reason why ours is successful and they are, because they're great content. That's it. That doesn't change with whatever technology you have. If people like stupider content, they've always liked stupid. Like there was versions of stupid content in every medium that there's been. And so I think we're betting that great content is great. That will always be enduring. It's something that's a constant and a persistent thing. And so I don't think podcasts have suddenly made a resurgence. It's just like the phones have come together well with the product and they're easier to use. They're not harder to find. People are on the go a lot more and they're just better speakers. There's better ways of delivering them. And so I think but the content is what matters. Secondly, I think that's what we're going to bank on that until we're dead and gone. That's our little bet. Everybody can make their own bets that they want. But and then someone just mentioned Google Glass about the face stuff. There's the product, the actual product was a problem. That's because the problem with Google Glass is you reacted to it. It didn't react to you. You had to learn their little system and it was uncomfortable and, by the way, unattractive and everything else. The concept is still important. It's like everyone used to write off. There was a thing, not the Palm Pilot. Before the Palm Pilot, there was the General Magic device. It looks like the iPhone. It just was. It was an idea whose time had not come. We will have facial stuff on our face, stuff around our eyes. The concept is 100% right. The execution of that particular product was not, but it doesn't mean that it's. The first Ford car was what did it do? One thing. It's still essentially the same. It was obviously a successful product, but it's just the wearables are going to be big. It's just how we're going to get them to ourselves in the right way. But the concept is 100% right, 100%.
Also, someone just asked about podcasts versus a YouTube channel. At The Verge, we do have a YouTube channel, and it really does quite well. I think we have almost 1 million subscribers now, and we're finding that it's a really good way to get feedback. And by feedback, I mean nice constructive comments. Not all of them are, but good feedback from a lot of our readers and our listeners. The thing that it comes down to, I think, with a video channel versus a podcast is it's just the time of production. I used to work as a video producer, and unless you kind of have experience working in the medium of video, you might not realize how long everything takes to plan and produce and shoot and light and shoot and then edit and render and process and distribute and everything like that. And podcasts are a really sort of fun and accessible and easier way, I think, in a lot of ways to get the same type of content across, but without all of the production that goes into it.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that again, I think it goes down to quality stuff or stuff that people like. I'm not going to say everything has to be highbrow, but it's stuff that people really enjoy listening to, or you're interested. You just have to be interesting. I don't know. I think that's the reason we've been successful at All Things D and we're successful at Recode, is because we create interesting moments for people and don't ask the same stock questions. And so I think that's, we're genuine. Lauren's the reason this podcast I think is going to be really good is it's genuine. It's not produced. It's the way we actually speak to each other when we're not on the podcast. And so
she really does swear at me when we're not.
But I call her with what's about this? I think when we were just signing on, I'm like, I don't get this password shit. And so
I'm like, Swisher, come on, we're going to be late. Swisher, I know you're busy.
And she acts like everyone knows how to use these stupid products. You know what I mean? And so I think that's, I think it's if you do that, people like that. People need guidance in this world. They need help, and they need it not in a way that makes them feel stupid. I think. I just feel I feel that way.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And I don't want to I'm going to do a YouTube channel of just me dancing. That's what I'm doing.
She's going to vlog. Kara's going to be the Casey Neistat you watch.
No, I'm gonna do makeup tips, obviously, clearly. My kids watch Vines and like Zach King and things like that. They watch Vines, they watch Instagrams. That's how they consume stuff. I couldn't hope to do any of that kind of stuff. I just, honestly, it would just be me grumping at them, kind of things. So I think but I think that's a really great space. So much creativity going into so much of that stuff. And same thing, and when you watch them, they're just amazing. Like they're so easily dismissed by Hollywood, but my kids, literally, that's where they get their entertainment, and they're the right age group. The second thing that I like VR, I have to say. I think the issue is who's going to create these VR experiences in the content area. And, they'll figure out the helmets and all the different things you wear. But I think really who's going to create the wonderful content? Even the bad stuff I've looked at has been pretty fantastic. I don't know, Lauren, how do you think of it?
I would actually disagree. I would say that the bad stuff just makes you want to rip the headset off and not experience it. I mean, I've used different cardboard things, and have found, I could watch a 90-second video that was really well done by the times, but beyond that, I don't really want to keep the headset on. Whereas once you've tried even something like the Samsung Gear VR, which is pretty accessible at $100, or once you've tried the Oculus Rift with touch, which I tried at CES last week, and you actually have this sensory experience in addition to this sensory experience, you're like, it's just you can't go back. You can't go back to cardboard after that.
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying it's actually, you can see where it's going, is all I'm saying, is you can see that it's going to be, like, I watched some movie and I literally thought someone was behind me shooting. I was in the movie, and it was a whole different, or I visited Rome, and I've been to Rome, and it was as good as Rome almost, except it wasn't in Rome. But it was pretty, you could just see where it's headed, and you could see that it's going to be something, it's very Star Trek-y in a way. I have a lot of people talk about VR. I think it's going to be fantastic.
And people talk a lot about the entertainment, and we're talking about the entertainment value of it too. But we've chatted about this on one of our earlier podcasts at Stanford University's Virtual Reality Lab. They actually do a lot of sort of behavioral analysis around virtual reality. So they'll have you put a VR headset on. There's an application they were doing for a while where you were basically a cow and you were grazing in a field of grass with other cows. And then they tracked how much meat people consumed after experiencing the life of a cow. And they did find that meat consumption went down. They have a Superman application where you're flying over buildings and flying through buildings. And then they try to measure whether or not that changes your confidence levels after that. And you can see how something like this could be really helpful with things like PTSD or other types of, just therapy for people. I think the possibilities are endless.
I want to actually fly. I want someone to the thing on your back, whatever you call it. I want one of those.
The wing.
I want a jetpack. What the hell is going on with a jetpack? Like, we should do that more on a show. Where is the jetpack development happening?
I'm going to call my jetpack people.
What? You're going to call it what?
My jetpack people. I don't know any jetpack people. I'm just pretending. Does anyone know any jetpack people?
I know. Come on. We want to write about that. Stupid content gets better views, but that's the same thing as watching the guy stealing a flat screen after Katrina. You know what? People have been stupid for centuries, and they will continue to be stupid. It has nothing to do with the medium. It has everything to do with human beings.
Yeah, earlier it was late last year where Kara and I were talking about the biggest product fails of 2015, and I ran through my laundry list of products that I had been disappointed by, and Kara said very definitively, I think the biggest product fail of this year was human civility, which it was kind of a depressing time of year, and there was a lot of bad news and a lot of really awful things going on in the world, unfortunately. And it's true, humans are always humans, no matter how much technology you inject into the picture. And
you get, we've done a lot around. There's a movie called Repo Man, if you've ever seen, and there's a line that goes, "Ordinary fucking people, I hate them." It's just like these tools are astonishing, and it's an ability to do great things with them, and there have been great things done. But it's also an ability to create really ugly speech. We're doing an anti-harassment initiative with Intel and also Lady Gaga's Born This Way Foundation, and it's the thing we'll probably talk about on the air, tools and stuff like this in anti-harassment. It's just like you can take these tools and do just horrible things with them, and the things people do online is appalling. Like they wouldn't do in a civil space the way they talk to people. You couldn't do it in a restaurant. You couldn't do it in a movie theater. You couldn't do it walking down. Maybe some people can do it walking down the street, but it's unusual. And so it's really only presidential candidates can apparently do it. But it's really interesting what kind of tools we have to develop to protect ourselves from ourselves. I think that'd be an interesting topic.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's really prevalent in gaming too.
Oh my God. Oh God. Honestly, I just, I don't let my kids play certain games. They wanted to get that game, Grand Theft Auto, I guess. And I played these things, so I see what they're doing. And I'm like, they shoot women in it, like, and not very nicely. And my son was like, Mom, I promise I won't shoot women. I was like, I feel like that's not the point. It's that they do it in the game.
If you're even having that conversation.
Okay. Well, then fine. Like, please, by all means, shoot men. I don't want them to shoot anybody, but that's anyway. It's interesting. Yeah, they definitely have to do something. I mean, people can play these things if they want, but we have to think about the impact.
Yeah, definitely. Bringing it back to the podcast, is the podcast going to be coming out on a weekly basis?
Yes, every Friday. Or if you're on West Coast time, like I am, 9 p.m. Pacific on Thursday nights.
And if you have ideas, it's hashtag #ReCode. Lauren, I'm going to tell the story of why it's not hashtag TETA. We had hashtag TETA, TETA, too embarrassed to ask, and apparently it means boobs in Spanish, so we can't use it.
Yeah, I didn't know. I posted it on Instagram with hashtag TETA, and I was very excited. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then let's see if I can find it for you guys. I don't know if I can, if you can see it, but basically people were like, oh, that hashtag though, that's wonderful, but you might want to rethink that hashtag. And I'm like, what the hell is wrong with TETA? Like and so I click on it, of course, and I'm like, whoa, boobs everywhere. And so, and then one of our wonderful producers got to the bottom of it and said, this is what it means. So we've got to change it. So it's Ask ReCode, everybody. Unless you want to look at boobs. Maybe you do.
Yeah.
That's not our hashtag anymore.
That's not our hashtag, sadly. I like TETA, but yes, I see the point. Ask ReCode, hashtag Ask ReCode, or at Lauren Goode or at Kara Swisher. Mostly at Lauren Goode. She's the expert.
Well, Kara's actually.
No, it's not Ask ReCode with a slash. It's just one word, right, Lauren? Ask ReCode.
Yeah, no slash.
No slash. We love the slash, and we stand by our slash, but in the hashtag, there is no slash.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I'm really excited about the podcast, and I can't.
Slashes don't work in hashtags. That's right. They don't.
No, they don't.
Yeah, good. Well, cool. Well, thanks so much for stopping by today. Oh, can you guys hear me?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, thanks so much for stopping by today, and I know I'm personally really excited about checking out the podcast. Can't wait, and I think there's a lot.
I didn't hear that at all. So
anyway, listen to Lauren Goode. Too embarrassed to ask. Hashtag Ask ReCode, not hashtag TETA. And ask us as many questions as you want. We really want to cover lots and lots of topics that would be surprising to people.
Yes. Thank you, guys. This was really fun.
Great.
Thanks.
All right. Well,
okay, so
thanks for doing this.
I guess we're going to go now.
Bye.
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 Oops.